Good night. I wish I could say good night in a better frame of mind, but good night to our viewers in Guyana, in the diaspora, and in the wider world. Good night to our panelists, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters across Guyana. As of this evening, I am sorry to report that there has been no movement from GCOM. Nothing with regards to the verification of the results for Region 4 has been done. In fact, what had happened was that the opposition party, or the parties contesting an election, in this case, the parties contesting an election, they have up to 24 hours after the declaration of results in which to demand a recount. Yesterday, Mingo said that he claimed to have declared the results. From that moment to today's midday, GCOM's building was locked and cordoned off, that the political parties could not access the building to even file that request, that demand for a recount. So not only was yesterday's declaration illegal because it was unverified results, but today GCOM disappeared. I had to ask on Facebook whether the Martians have landed, because the chairperson, the CEO, the staff, nobody, the RO, nobody could be found. In addition, this morning, the agents were requested to go there to open the container that has blank SOPs and ballots, the excess election materials. The contesting parties of the elections rightfully protested that you do not need the blank SOPs, you do not need any of these documents. And so they refused to open the container. Just so that you know, that is probably one of the last things left available to them, that they all have to be there to open the container. So that container was not opened. The position we are in presently is that Region 4's results have not been verified, over and above which 2 nights ago were the 300 odd boxes would have been completed. From then, nothing has happened. Today, GCOM was absent. Nobody could find a soul. Where they were, nobody knew. But the opposition or the contesting parties to the election could not even have found them to serve the court order or the summons of the court. So there is a huge standoff. In addition to all of this, the United Nations, the observer missions, the international community, the senators, the bipartisan committee from the United States, you name it, they have made calls to Guyana all during today to demand that GCOM do its job. That's all that is being requested. You know, this thing has nothing about PPP and PNC and APNU or anybody else. This thing has a demand for GCOM to do its job. Tomorrow morning, if GCOM were to do its job and a verified process says that Granger is the president, I will congratulate him, as everybody else should. But the process has to be verified by the international observers. So as of tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the Carter mission has announced that they cannot do anything else other than wait on GCOM. As of tonight, ladies and gentlemen, the other fact is that there are a number of pro-government organizations that have written to say that the international observers should get out of this country. They're treading beyond grounds to which they ought to tread, that they should not be there at the commission center, that to verify the SOPs, that nobody should be there. The law doesn't provide for anybody to verify them. So it's getting from one state to another, and the defense of the positions seems to be a little bit, if not a lot, ridiculous. What is worse? And this brings me to tears. Across this country, our brothers and sisters are physically fighting. They're hurling not just verbal abuses at each other, they're hurling stones and sticks, and they're virtually attacking each other. Brothers and sisters, do not hate each other. It is not Indo-Guyanese or Afro-Guyanese that got us where we are. It is all of us as Guyanese. And we have to work hard to preserve this country. As we speak, tear gas, live ammunition, fire, you name it, has rained upon a couple of communities in this country. And it is reminiscent of what happened, even though the causes were different. In this case, it is for credible elections. The last time it was for various social issues in Linden, but it is sad that we are in a situation like in Linden where police have to open fire on communities, on people. This is not what we are as a people. So we are in dire straits, brothers and sisters, wherever you are across the world. Guyana weeps today. As I said yesterday, whether the PPP gets power or APNU gets power, whoever wins, Guyana has lost royally. In studio tonight, we expect to have some guests, including Mr. Shuman. I'm hoping to get Mr. Ramjattan. I'm hoping to get quite a few guests tonight, and says. With us presently at this moment is Dr. Rose and Dr. Ramharak. Gentlemen, your comments as we start tonight's program. Dr. Rose, you want to go first, please?
Yes. I think what's happening in Guyana now, it's really sad. And this could take the country back decades rather than advance it. Guyana, in my opinion, has become a political Titanic. The country is taking in water, and it is sinking rapidly. And President Granger has to decide whether he will put the country first or himself first. He has to decide whether he wants the country to move forward or remain backwards. He should realize that failing to adhere to the international observers and the rest of the international community to have the votes in Region 4 verified and be counted accurately and let the chips fall where they may is something that no one could have predicted. How can you have an election and you're declaring results and the vote in the country's largest region, which is Region 4, is not being validated? How can you declare results when in fact that the GCOM chairman or the GCOM CEO is not even there to accept the results and declare it? Something is terribly amiss here. And I'm appealing to all the people of Guyana, from whatever race you are, from whichever political party you support, please, please do me one favor. Do not involve in violence. It does not augur well for the country. You cannot destroy the country that has taken so long to be built. You cannot talk about killing other people because they are not of your ethnic backgrounds. This is not what Guyana should be. We have become a civilized society today, and we, so to speak, and we cannot afford to let this happen. We must, all of us, do what is in our power to make sure the right thing is done. Just verify if APNU believes that it won the election, then verify the results. and the world would be happy to know that APNO has won the election. Why you don't want the result to be verified if you have won it? Why? So I'm saying to all Guyanese and all the political parties and leaders, do the right thing for the country. Make Guyana first. And with that, if Guyana is first, then the people will support you.
Well, good evening, gentlemen. I'm still a little bit under the weather, but I'm here tonight. Just to recap a little bit, I think it goes without saying that all of us on this show, and there are many Guyanese who are watching, whether they're in the homeland or whether they're in the diaspora, I think we all want to have a credible, free, and fair election. And as Dr. Rose said, whoever wins the election, but we have to have a free, transparent, and a fair process, right? So on the one hand, we have the challenges that are taking place, and this brings me to a little story that I can say, which kind of dramatize the situation in which we are in today. I mean, if I'm trying to steal cookies from a jar, I'll put my hand in the jar, but before I do that, I'll look around and see if anyone is looking to make sure I don't get caught. But what is galling and what is very disturbing here with the events that are being played out in Guyana is you have, in the face of international observers and local observers who are invited, right, to observe the process. And in the middle of that process, while all eyes are on the stabilization and verification process, you have a very blatantly bold attempt to seize the process and change the rules of the game. In the middle of the game, even though everyone had agreed to play it by the same rules, right? So we have a very bold, I know in Guyana we say this is I pass, but that's what it is. It is blatantly, boldly I pass. And as I said last night, I believe, and again, I'm a political scientist, and I know a little bit about the history of Guyana. We have written about issues like the ethnic conflict and so on how we can promote democracy. And those things are in the public domain. But I do believe, as I said last night, that given the sequence of events, and of course, things like we can't find the chairperson, the CEO is missing, the RO is missing, that points to me in a direction where I believe Mr. Granger was going to crown himself president, right? Crown in inverted commas, crown himself the president for the next 5 years. But I believe the miscalculation was, as you mentioned before, Yog, was that they did not anticipate that you will have this kind of reaction from the international observers. And I think that puts a check because, as I said before, prior to this, in the past, the PPP has been accused of being a party that is ideologically, not suited to govern Guyana. And I think, given the fact that you have this event with, in the past where PPP leaders have actually condemned, I'm thinking of the event with Priya, having that spate, that rejection or those comments she made regarding the American ambassador. So I think Granger miscalculated, did not see the series of events that precipitated this action. And I think that actually put a halt in going forward and trying to, have a swearing in. But I think if it had come to that point, I believe that what they would have done, that would have given them an opportunity now, assuming that they had some kind of tacit support from international organizations and some countries, that would have given them the pretext now to go out and establish some kind of emergency rule, right? Just to control the protests and keep things quiet. Because I think right now the coalition is in a jam. And the reason is because you have so many senators. I'm looking at the GlobeSpan emails and so on today, that there are so many senators and so on, members of Congress in the U.S. Who are making statements, and that continues, and that's been continuing all day today, where people are saying, that what is going on is illegal, and the process has to continue. So the bottom line, what I'm saying here, and I'm going to end with this. What I'm saying here tonight is that this is an opening to prevent further drift into the dark side. I believe the protests. I agree with the doctor over there on your side in Richmond Hill, who said that we have to stay away from violence. However, the protest has to continue to put the pressure on the coalition, and I think the legal challenges also has to continue. And hopefully, they say sometimes within crisis, you have something good may come out of this. So hopefully at some point there may be a meeting of the minds between the opposition forces and the coalition, and something, by some miracle, can be worked out to push this country forward and create some semblance of stability.
Thank you. And let me just respond to one of our viewers who asked the question. That's why I find it a tough question to even contemplate. The question is, why are we blaming GCOM? well, it is GCOM. GCOM has subverted justice in Guyana. GCOM's chairman, the issue we have here is no one is saying whether, from my perspective, I don't care who wins. All we are asking is GCOM to release the results that is verified. And in the process, yes.
Sorry, we have Mr. Ramjattan on call now.
Wonderful. Thank you. Good night to you, sir.
Yeah, this is Ramjattan, please.
How are you? How are you, sir?
Oh, a draining day. Had lots of incidents and protest demonstrations and even what I regard as riotous conduct in a number of the areas, Bath, Luziknan, Canal.
Okay.
There are hot spots all over the country.
Tell us what's going on and what's your view of what's going on.
Well, my view of what's going on is that it is very much not helping the situation. It is more or less illegal what is going on. But I could understand people's vexation having lost an election, and the GCOM, the umpire in this contest, the constitutional body, indicating the results, and some people not liking it and doing as best as they think they can do, and then inciting and instigating people to come on the road and they block even ambulances from passing, and that's not nice. And then running the police down the road, I've asked that the police must not use anything but minimum force, and of course these crowds are, it is not a nice situation. So I am urging via your radio station here or television station that these things could come to a halt.
Okay. So if you don't mind me asking, sir, with regards to the statement by the international observers, I do know that there are groups that have said that they feel that the international observers may be overstepping their bounds. What's your perspective on the international observers and their statements?
Well, the international observers can obviously make their statements, and we will respect that statement. The trouble, however, is that GCOM is our constitutional body that they came to observe in relation to this elections. GCOM managed to conduct a very peaceful election day event, and the number of previous to that day event, which I understand they all commended. Results came in, and the results were more or less what I understand were accepted by the various contending parties, and these were the results that GCOM was announcing. And then they were supposed to announce a very important one at Region 4. When I understand they were about to announce that, there was an invasion of the precincts of the GCOM. by the opposition. And there's where things got very, very clouded, and a number of people in there, the officers got scared. The returning officer was shouted down by the opposition and all of that. And then he had to run upstairs. And I understand from upstairs he then announced the results, which then favored the APNU. Now, an exact situation had happened in 2015. The results from the other areas, excepting Region 4, of course, the PPP was leading in those areas. And then the Region 4, which is 45% of the electorate in Guyana, Mahaika to Soesdijk or thereabouts, including Georgetown, when the results came in, they lost that region by 43,000 votes. That was the last time. With the upsurge of voter turnout this time, we have the situation where they lost by about 55,000. And they apparently don't want to believe that, and they're indicating that they are going to contest.
Right, but shouldn't, well, two things there. Shouldn't the declaration have been from the verified results? And two, they were not allowed today they were not allowed to ask for a recount because GCOM was locked up all day and the chairman and everybody couldn't be found.
Well, I understand that there were good reasons to lock it up. They're scared for their lives. But indeed, as the GCOM officials have been indicating, by the way, they're the umpires, and they indicated that they are the people in charge, and they will, the constitutional body that is empowered to conduct these elections, they have no obligations in these circumstances to go through 899 one by one statement of polls, and they did it from a spreadsheet. Now that spreadsheet, I know, as a matter of fact, was used after the elections results from the various areas from Georgetown and East Bank and East Coast come in. They would do that. And the spreadsheet was the basis for using that method for announcing since 1996. And it's right up to the 2015 elections.
But
and because of the institution,
yeah,
and
in 1996 and before,
No, 1996 and after that.
Right, but those years, you yourself were opposing this thing.
No, we didn't oppose. I never opposed it once it corresponds with what you... Look, you have to appreciate that 899, whatever it is, that is why a lot of people ask the question, why does it take so long? But when the people bring it in and they put it in a spreadsheet and then they say, well, fine, these are the results, and especially if it is in accordance with what your individual statement of pollsters would have brought in, then you're okay with it. So, GCOM is the umpire here.
Right. But you're a lawyer.
GCOM, yeah.
You're a lawyer. From a legal perspective, doesn't the law require that the announcement can only be made after a verification?
No, absolutely not. Not as far as I am aware, and not as far as the GCOM lawyers are here. That is why we have done it from 1996 to now.
Okay.
Mr. Ramjattan.
And that is quite clear. And we feel that having declared the results, look, it's the exact thing happened the last time.
But
when
Ramjattan, here is what the population is saying. Yog Mahade would say the same. Because of what happened the last time is why you were in government. Because people didn't like what used to happen. And so they gave you a vote of confidence not to repeat the same kind of things, to be better.
Boss, if we are to now go and tell the umpire by appealing to him, give us out, or whatever the decision we want, we are not going to make that institution an independent institution. We fought hard to make the GCOM, just like the Supreme Court, the judges must not be interfered with and all of that.
to ensure that be an independent body. We were avoiding that precincts and all of that like the plague, because they have to make their decision. When they now make their decision, and some people don't like it, you're gone and you're doing all kinds of things, and you're disagreeing with them because of a certain practice that you would like now to bring in. And that is the problem we have here. I must say that there is a remedy for if you do not want to believe what GCOM has produced. And that is what we call, and the Alliance for Change did that. When Sam Hines had taken out our seat from Linden, I think 10 years ago, or in the previous elections, we had to go by elections petition.
Yeah,
that is the method that every court
isn't the first step. Isn't the first step like what you guys have done? APNO AFC, within 24 hours of the declaration of the Region 6 and 5 and so forth, you asked for a recount. And
that's correct. If you want a count, you can do a recount. This is but not a recount that they're asking for. This is but some other verification process that they have asked for.
My understanding is a couple of the parties were asking for a recount, but they are not allowed to file because nobody is there. I mean, what's your opinion on that? Yeah, we know that there are problems with the day before, people being scared as they're saying and stuff, but as of today, nobody is there to even receive a filing for a recount.
I don't know if nobody was there. I understand that Mr. Lowenfield was there. I understand that the returning that these officers were all there, but in any event, I wasn't keeping a tab on them.
Okay.
I am asking now, you got a matter, you want to settle a dispute, you go to the court. You would want the contestants now to tell the judge how to rule and create procedures?
No, but that's why I would take you as my lawyer, because I mean I am not a lawyer like you, but I do know that 84.1 and 86.1 and so forth in People's Representation of the People Act would have said that they must ascertain the votes cast in favor of each list.
Well, that ascertainment, I could understand the ascertainment, but this is 809, and what a returning officer must do is to tally up after he would have ensured that there is the ascertainment. And that is what has happened here. In any event, I don't know if we will fight over this. The trouble is that GCOM has called a figure, and it has indicated that now is what the figure is. Generally, what happens after that is that the CEO will go now and tell the chairperson, Claudette Singh, that these are the results. I have gotten all 1 to 10 regions, and this is the tally. And if it is won by like 2015 by 4,000, or now by approximately 8,000, that's the result. You know who to swear in as president, who got the maximum vote on the higher votes and all of that.
Correct.
But then we got a court action that came yesterday, and the court action has halted the swearing in. So I think we'll have to go till Monday. Monday's Pagwa. I don't know what is now the thing. But right now, we have other things that have developed. Security issues and protest demonstration all across the country.
Mr. Ramjattan.
Yes.
Mr. Ramjattan. Is Dr. Rose here?
Yes.
Dr. Rose here. From the reports coming out of Guyana, they're saying that 11 parties contested the elections. Of those 11 parties, they each had SOPs from each of the polling stations, the 2,339 polling stations, signed by them and the returning officers. And 10 of those parties' polling SOPs match each other. It was public knowledge that APNO has now presented their SOPs. And those 10 SOPs numbers differ from what the results of Region 4 is. My question to you is this.
Well, look,
Can I finish the question? Can I finish the question?
Yeah.
My question to you is this. Is all the observers in the international community wrong? Is all the diplomats in Guyana wrong, including CARICOM, including the Commonwealth of Nations, and only you are right?
Look. I believe that GCOM should be allowed to do its work.
But
And GCOM has been doing the work.
But
Yeah, so that is it.
Yeah.
If you now go and invade the offices of GCOM, you have gone into the GCOM's offices and you have invaded literally. You have taken away documents. You have taken away computers and flash drives and all kinds of things. What do you expect?
But Mr. Ramjattan, is reported that is one of the returning officers took his place. But my question to you, as I ask you the question, I haven't got the answer. But the other question is this. APNU wins the election, according to you. Then why don't allow the verification process? If I win something, go ahead and do what you have to do to verify it now. Why can't APNU allow the verification process?
That verification can go on. Generally, it goes on in a process called an elections petition.
No. Mr. Ramjattan, please.
And go back into and do like what the cross report had to do.
Mr. Ramjattan, you're going back to tell people that 34 is the half of 68, 65. That's exactly what you're doing today. I hate to tell you this. That's exactly what you're doing. Okay, and I hope the CCJ tell you all something that is wrong.
All right. I thought that I was here
to give we're not going to buy what you're telling us.
That is no reason why you're going to now indicate to your supporter base to block roads and to do a whole set of other things.
Not at all.
But you're not answering my question. You're not answering my question, though.
Personally, stop, Dr. Rose, please stop. So, Mr. Ramjattan, here is what I have personally, and this platform has stood up for, is we're calling on people, you have a right to protest, but protest peacefully. Do not block the roads. Do not put a threat to persons or properties. Do what you have to do in a matter of peace if you feel that you have a grouse and you need to protest. So
at the bad settlement, at the bad settlement, they have an excavator and a big bulldozer that has blocked the road, and 300, 400 cars from Quarantine going to Georgetown, probably to the airport. They were all blocked, and they're now going back home. The people who are supposed to lend us their tractor, they were threatened, and a whole set of other things. And I have asked the police for minimum force. Do not, if you got to run away from, I do not want any kind of force to be used here.
Okay.
But so, that is one of the things. Well, just before you called me in, I was trying to get somebody to help me remove that thing. And the proprietors of the thing just leave it like there.
Okay.
So but you have not answered my question, though.
The other issue with elections petition is that, I mean, election petition is something that is after the point. I mean, it's since 2015, election petition has not been heard as yet. But I don't want to belabor the point.
But isn't that the method you do? Exactly. When it applies to AFC whilst we were in opposition in relation to Region 10, they say that, look, you can't go and verify. Steve Sturge-Valley was telling Gokul Buru that, look, it seems that the AFC has won a seat here, an extra seat in Linda. No, he has to go to the elections petition court. And that is the process at the time.
But that was after.
All right. Here. If we want to work in accordance with the law, and the law is that GCOM is the umpire, if you make the appeals and GCOM does not raise its fingers to tell you to go out, you allow GCOM to do its work. You don't want to invade it. And then, now when things go missing, you then say, well, I win the elections, this is what you did with elections, and all of that.
Here is my question to you, and this has nothing to do with you being in the position you're in. What will it take for GCOM to get back to work?
You're asking me, that's a very unfair question. It is just a walking back to the office and probably get to work.
Okay.
But if the people are fearful in view of what has happened, because I understand a big contingent went in front of the building again there today, and the officers were scared.
Mr.
And then we
Arjun,
got a court order, and a court order blocking it. I don't know, the court order might have to now be reviewed back on Monday or Tuesday. Well, Monday's Pago, Tuesday, I don't know.
Okay.
And it's a state of flux. And while
So-
that is happening, a number of other things are happening.
let's go back to Mr. I think Mr. Arjun has a question for you.
Well, I don't have a question. I want to point out that one of the first statements I heard when I entered the room was that GCOM is subverting justice. And the idea of subverting justice is pleasing to the ear, not that GCOM is. I think all of us should be involved in promoting justice. But the suggestion that people should prevent GCOM from doing its work is indeed a perversion of justice. The suggestion that you can't wait until a declaration to seek redress from the court is a perversion of justice. The matter here is, can you get justice? Not your determination that justice lies in you blocking GCOM from completing its work and at the same time disrupting law and order in the city. Justice is not something that you determine just based on your individual interests. And it's very important to point out that GCOM was lauded for its work until a particular result was announced. And then it became a demon that needed to be excised from the process. We have empowered GCOM to conduct elections and announce who is the winner. Suddenly now you're saying that GCOM is no longer useful. One other point. Dr. Rose said that all the observers and all the diplomatic community are denouncing what happened. That is not a correct characterization. They have said they have questions. They have not said that the whole process is no good. And furthermore, our law does not mandate verification. That is an administrative allowance made by GCOM. You and others are inserting in our law the requirement of verification.
All I'm asking, Dr. is this. Let all the political parties present their statement of polls they received from their agents. And let's check those results. Those are actually votes cast. And not somebody coming up with a figure to say, well, this is... All the parties got a statement of polls. I'm asking Mr. Ramjattan to ask your party to present your statement of polls, and if it corresponds with what Mr. Mingo presented, then all glory to APNU. Let all the parties present the statement of polls,
my man, that is what Valdo was there for. I understand. Until it was invaded, when there was an appreciation that like the vote's too high that will now be announced. Okay? Valdo was there, and with her statements of polls, I understand. But this is but an exercise in an administrative arrangement. Assuming now when they go there to do this vote verification, whatever, Valdo says that, okay, what you are saying that the APNU has 200, it is really 300. What do you do there?
Mr. Ramjattan, all I'm asking...
I have a statement of poll that says 300, and you have one that says 200. What do we do? So the GCOM says that I have a statement of poll that says 300, and what, you start fighting inside there?
No, Mr. Ramjattan.
So I am
I'm a
saying
practical person.
that the administration...
All I'm asking you is that GCOM has a statement of polls from all its returning officers in all 2,339 districts. All the parties have the statement of polls from those districts. Present those statement of polls, and I go with those numbers. That's all I'm asking.
Yeah, fine. Well, whatever it is. But GCOM found itself in a huge problem that day.
Does APNO AFC have the
And they
statement of
decided
polls?
to make the pronouncement, obviously based on
No,
statement of polls that GCOM has.
GCOM didn't make no pronouncement from the day statement of polls. I'm saying to you, does APNO AFC have the statement of polls like the rest of the political parties? So bring all those statements of polls together and let's go with the results. Let's go with those results. All 10 parties' statement of polls, they said the numbers correspond. GCOM has the statement of polls from returning officers, their numbers correspond. So I'm saying to you, you're going to go with one number that don't correspond with 10 different parties.
To Dr. Rose's chagrin, he should know that he doesn't set the rules. GCOM does under our Constitution, and that's what GCOM did.
That is correct.
They made a declaration based on the information they had. Now he wants to introduce a procedure that he thinks is fair.
Could question all of the GCOM's votes. And that is the problem we have.
Yeah.
Look,
I'm not questioning GCOM's vote. No. I'm not questioning GCOM's vote. I'm saying to you, let the statement of polls from all the parties be presented. And if all of you want to be in denial, I am a principled person. Let the chips fall where they may. Denial is a sin.
All right.
Denial
I am
is
not
a
going
sin.
to interfere with GCOM's work.
No,
I
no,
understand what
interfering
you're telling
GCOM's
me.
work. You just cited the issue, Mr. Ramjattan. You're just citing the issue.
Listen
Nobody
to me.
interferes with GCOM's work. This is a cheap sellout or a cheap call. Let the parties present a statement of polls. That's all. Let the world see them. And if whosoever wins it, fine. I give them all the praise and all the glory. That's all I'm saying to you.
Those are Dr. Rose's.
All right. I hear you.
Mr. Ramjattan, this is Charles Agreement. How are you doing? I've listened to you, and I gotta be very frank with you. I don't believe what you just said there. GCOM, there were 2,339 polling stations in Guyana for the last election. Every observer, every political party, everyone agreed the process went very smoothly. Of that 2,339, all the regions, their statement of polls were verified with every other political party, including your party, and everyone agrees with those results. A reasonable person would believe that if it has happened to 9 other regions, Region 4 will be no exception. It appears to me what Region 4 did, the returning officer, he put into his spreadsheet number that he think is right, which is not from the statement of polls, because all the parties agreed that the numbers vary on the statement of polls for Region 4. Every other region agreed. So my question, Mr. Ramjattan, is where is reason? You are a reasonable guy. Where is the reasonableness? So. What a reasonable man would think that 9 regions can be confirmed with verification, but Region 4 cannot.
Exactly.
Because I understand what you're saying. Because GCOM makes the call. And if you'd like them to go re-verify, well, fine. The trouble is that GCOM has made the call. And that is where we are.
But, okay, let me come back to our point here. I just wish to read this. I know I'm taking up a lot of your time, but please bear with me. Section 84.1. As soon as this people's representation of the People's Act, counting of votes, as soon as practical after the receipt of all the ballot boxes and the envelopes and packets delivered to him in pursuance of Section 83.10, the returning officer shall, in the presence of such persons entitled under Section 86.1 to be present as attend, ascertain the total votes cast in favor of each list in the district by adding up the votes recorded in favor of the list in accordance with the statements of poll, and thereupon publicly declare the votes recorded for each list of candidates. Are you satisfied that this was adhered to?
I am satisfied that that was adhered to when he made the addition of those statements of polls.
But
the
president,
not based on the statement of polls.
Just read you
yes, but that is the addition of the statement of polls results.
But
we have been doing this thing. We've been doing this thing.
Mr. Ramjattan,
All right, all right.
the law
We will have
said-
an interpretation problem here, and in any event, if that be the position, well, I wouldn't be able to go further. But whatever it is,
So
Mhm.
the situation that's present in the country, Mr. Ramjattan, the situation is present. We understand that the squad would have moved into Cotton Tree. A few people have been shot there. But the situation is at present in that area. Have you gotten reports that it has calmed, or is it still problematic?
no, it is they blocked the road, as I've said, the bad settlement, and there's still crowds milling around, and a number of other things happening there. There have been stopping of cars, and I think the reports are indicating that there might be the beating of certain people. I don't want to go further than that, and that's not nice.
Mm-hmm.
And people are now just reversing away and going away. That is not nice. I've come out with a statement this afternoon, myself and Kathy Hughes and James Bond, and indicated that we are all peaceful people in this country. There are resolutions to problems that are stated in the law and all of that. Please do not allow our sentiments to get the better of us. And please do not use violence against any other human being, and so on. And it seems not to be going down pretty well. I now understand that Jagdo did indicate, please be calm, but it was after he kind of instigated them to come out on the street and so on. But I am hoping that tomorrow better sense prevail, and there can be a resolution to all these problems.
Okay. And the Carter Center and the observers and so forth, are you satisfied that they should remain until whatever time that they feel satisfied with the process?
They're free and secure in this country until such time as they want to leave. I think the president met them this morning or yesterday, and they indicated that, well, of course, some of them have left and all of that. And I am certain that whatever security arrangements they want me to play, I will certainly do that.
When do you foresee swearing in?
Well, I want to believe that when these court matters are dealt with, I suppose.
Okay.
And that is the vacuum that is created.
Yeah, that was my next question to you. So what about the vacuum that's created in the country and in governance?
Well, it is a vacuum that at least our Constitution tried as best as possible to fill by stating that the President and his ministers will still remain in government until the next elections, or the swearing in of the President upon an elections. And so I am still minister, the President remains the President, and that takes care of it. But, you know, it is not the best of situations.
Are you looking forward to serve as Prime Minister?
Well, I thought that I would have done that after the announcement, but of course all manner of things came tumbling down, and you'd have dashed hopes as a politician. I had always wanted, as you know, Yog, to be in the PVP until, of course, Barrett expelled me for, the reason, no reason at all. But that is what you do have as experiences in a political career. And I may have a bias and a prejudice here, because the announcement meant that you could have been the Prime Minister, and you're prepared for it. You're an experienced politician for long-standing PYO days since 1975 days and all that. So you feel a little, what do you call it, disappointed, and that is it. But of course, if indeed the courts rule and whatever else, that's the result, or that is what should happen, I rather suspect that I can fit the bill quite properly.
Okay, great. Gentlemen, any more questions for Mr. Ramjattan?
Before you go, so if the court ruled that the verification must be done according to the law that Yoke just read. And that verification is done subsequently, and the result is different from yours. Will you accept that result?
I am ready to accept the results of this election once GCOM calls it. Okay? And if the court orders GCOM to call a certain result based on whatever law or administrative arrangements it must be done, that is what we are all there for as politicians. We will respect GCOM's result.
Thank you. And you're speaking on behalf of the entire list?
I speak on behalf of, yes, I rather suspect that I'm speaking on behalf of all the members of that list.
Okay.
And the GCOM's results, certainly. That is what I'm looking forward to. And I would like other people on the other side, PVP especially, to respect that results too.
Well, yes, I think the issue here, as long as the court has its say and the verification process and things are done according to the pieces of legislation, then I think nobody has even I myself have said, from a people's perspective, I as an ordinary citizen of this country, whoever wins legally and by following all the rules, that's fine. I will congratulate that person. But until then, gentlemen, any other questions for Mr. Ramjattan?
I would like to know, Mr. Ramjattan, if the court rules that the verification process has to be done before the results are declared, will the government appeal it all the way to the
respect that. Look, there are two things as a lawyer you respect: your constitutional agencies and your Supreme Court. The court rules that way, you respect the court's decision, unless, of course, you want to go and appeal it. And then probably
that's my question. Are you going to appeal it all the way to the CCJ?
I don't know what our lawyers will do, but I am certain that these are matters that should be decided by the High Court once and for all and done with.
Okay. Mr. Ramjattan, just one last question from me. This is coming in from a viewer. They're asking whether you would verify or care to comment on the veracity that a person died from police shooting in the Cotton Tree Bath area.
I understand. Somebody was injured. There's no death as far as I know. Yes. The ambulance was carrying the person, but they were blocked. I had to get a special police vehicle to go across with the people and so on. But the ambulance the ambulance driver was begging, and they still said no, they're not allowing. Nobody must pass.
Someone died.
I don't know, but I heard that there was some more bleeding, but there was no death. I understand.
Okay, thank you.
Just have a quick question.
Yeah.
Hi, Khemraj. Beto Ram here. How are you? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Hi, how are you? Can you hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me, Yoke.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm hearing you again.
Okay. Just a couple of questions. And I have to say,
a couple of questions.
Short ones.
Yes.
I know it's going to be a busy night for you. But my mama always tell me to respect my elders and people who are smarter than I am, and I consider you to be one of those smart people. And I do have a terribly hard time accepting a lot of the things you're saying here tonight. And I would say, with all due respect, you do have a tradition of saying things that are flippant, like, Charandas is, he's being paid. You've got the Russians in Guyana today. But here's my question, though. Do you have any idea? This is the first question. Do you have any idea where the GCOM CEO and the chairperson is at this point?
No, I don't know. I can find that out for you. But I think they will be at home right now, safe and sound.
Okay. My second question is this. If the protests continue, and again, I disagree with the statement you made before, and I think the protest...
Go ahead with the question. Don't bother with the statement.
The question is this. If the protests continue, would you advocate for a declaration of martial law?
It depends on the gravity of it. That is something, however, that the president generally makes the emergency orders, not the minister, as far as I know. And we are hoping to God that it does not reach there, that better sense will prevail.
Okay.
I don't like martial law. I don't like emergency legislation coming into being. That is crazy. This is basically a decent country until, of course, when elections time come, it is silly season. So I wouldn't want to go that. What's the third question?
That was my second. I know you have a long night, so I'll let you go.
One last thing, not meaning to want to correct you, but I understand maybe it is something you can check on after you come off the phone, but I understand that the gentleman has died. Yeah. So at bad settlement.
He's not a gentleman, as far as I know. The person was a little girl.
Okay.
Drummer man, I think granddaughter. The fellow that plays the drum.
Okay, but I'm getting...
Amirada was the one that I understand was shot. A little girl.
I'm getting a report that a man was shot and he was taken to... The body is being taken to the Amsterdam hospital. Yeah. But anyway...
No. That probably is of recent vintage, and I didn't get that from the commissioner.
Okay. Please check it, and if anything, you can always let us know whether it's...
I will email Nohar to say that we have had our first fatality. Thanks. Take care. Bye.
Thanks.
Take care, Yogi. Bye.
Yeah, bye. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, there we had the guest, Mr. Khemraj Ramjattan, Prime Ministerial candidate for the APNO slate. And among the many questions that he deliberated on was the one that has engaged all the international observers, that is on the point of verification of the SOPs before declaration. And I would like to turn to our panelists now. I know we have a new member in our panel. Welcome, sir. What's your comment on this section of the law as we read out earlier, which requires to having persons present 831 and having persons ascertain the numbers before making an announcement?
I imagine you're speaking to me?
Yes.
Yeah,
sir.
well, I believe the section is designed to give legitimacy to what the GCOM official says. And I believe that was done in this instance until there was interruption from members of the opposition and others. But while the section speaks to presence, the section does not spell out verification. And I think that's where the distinction has to be made. It has become a practice within our electoral system to have some form of verification. But that has not been put into statute. And this is a problem. A colleague said not too long ago that the statute is requiring that this whole thing go through verification. And the international community is bought in to this concept.
No, but it does
let me just finish. I have no objection to it because it makes results far more palatable, especially in a country like Guyana, where everything is seen through the lens of the PPP and the PNC, which in turn is based on race. And the result is that if one side says one thing and the other side says something, it's not looked from the prism of honesty. That person is saying it only because the person has an agenda. And this is why we have GCOM as a referee. And in that particular statute, it's saying, okay, if we're going to do certain things, then we need to have a referee present. But still, it doesn't say that you need to go through this verification process that we're insisting on be done, and that the international community has bought into. And by the way, again,
can you read back the law for us?
Can you read back the law for us, please?
Yeah, I would be happy to, because I beg to differ. Look, 84.1. As soon as practicable, after receipt of all the ballot boxes, the envelopes and packets delivered to him in pursuance of Section 83.10, the returning officer shall, in the presence of such persons entitled under 86.1 to be present as attend, ascertain the total votes cast.
Hold on, stop right there. Stop right there. Let me ascertain mean what? Verification.
No, Ian finish. Let him finish. Continue reading.
Ascertain the total votes cast in favor of each list in the district by adding up the votes recorded in favor of the list in favor of the list in accordance with the statement of polls. And
that is ascertained is verification.
Right.
Thereupon, publicly declare the votes recorded for each list of candidates.
So we are mixing words. We are mixing words there to mean the same thing. Ascertainment means
verification.
We verified. You ascertain
and based
the
on
numbers.
the statement of polls.
So we can use semantics. We can use semantics.
It's not semantics.
It is semantic.
You know, I mean,
one
second. Let me just hold on. Let me just say this. So we hear that the section of the law contains that. And to our viewers out there, let me apologize. Mr. Derek Arjun has joined us here. So, sir, I didn't get to introduce you earlier. Mr. Derek Arjun is a well-known activist, outspoken person who, you would meet more of him on the show tonight. So, sir, there is this section of the law, and there is also custom and practice to your point. I mean, look, a lot of parties fought over the agreements of the Herdmanston Accord and fought to get to the ADR just so that the elections can be credible.
And I fully support that struggle for credible elections and elections that reflect the will of the people. What we are overlooking here is that the process of verifying, for want of a better word, I would use verify. I mean, of verifying Region 4's votes was seriously disrupted by opposition forces. Now, nobody seems to be paying attention to that. They're saying that the chairperson was absent, the CEO was absent, the RO was unavailable. But they were doing their work when their work was interfered with by members of the opposition, including threats of violence.
Can you yield? Can you yield, sir?
Including...
that is just totally ridiculous.
That is total BS. My friend.
Hold a second. You know, one of the things I anticipated in coming here is that we'll have disputes. We'll have disputes about what the facts are. And of course, those who are against what AP and UAFC have done will say that their facts are wrong. And I'm a supporter of the coalition, and I have a certain view of the facts. So we could argue tonight ad nauseum about what occurred at GCOM that caused GCOM to stop their work.
Right.
But
here is the other issue. So of all the parties contesting the elections, all of them were there,
including the observers.
Yes, only APNO seems to be right. Now we have joining us Mr. Sesnarayan Singh and Lenox Shuman, who would have both been present there. Ses, you're on? Hello?
Yes, this is Ses from Georgetown, Guyana.
Good. Ses, my apologies. Last night we wanted to bring you on, but we were really running tight against the clock. Thank you for having been patient and for coming on tonight. Give us in your words what transpired, because what we are understanding from Mr. Ramjattan and others, and Mr. Arjun shares the opinion that the GCOM's lockdown is because you all have threatened these people's lives, and so they're fearful for their lives.
Are we on Comedy Central? Good night, Mr. Arjun. We're not on Comedy Central.
Good night,
This is a
sis.
serious situation. This is a serious situation. It's not a situation that we should take lightly out. And I want to ask Mr. Arjun a very simple question. Were you in the room at GCOM where the results were being counted? Can you answer that question, Mr. Arjun?
Mrs. I was.
I'm
not
asking
there,
you a
sis.
straight question.
And
Were
would
you in the
would
room?
would you permit me
Were
to
you in
answer?
the room at
Would you
GCOM
permit me
where
to
the-
answer? Would you permit me to answer? And the answer
Oh,
is
sorry,
no.
sorry.
The answer is no.
Excellent. So if you were not in the room, how can you conclude that there were forces in the room trying to deny GCOM from doing its work?
Is that a
Where did you get such information?
All right, you've asked me two questions. You've asked me.
Yes.
You've asked me. You've asked me where did I get that information, and as a result, how did I conclude what I conclude? Okay, first question: where did I get my information? I have spoken to colleagues. In fact, I left Guyana 2 days ago. I've spoken to colleagues who are still there. I've spoken to persons in and around APNU, AFC, and I've spoken to persons who were not connected. And they have told me what I have recited not too long ago about these disruptions.
Okay.
And some of the, and I'm just heard a third question, were they there? Some were in fact there. Now, how did I come to that conclusion? Based on the representations of persons whose credibility I have trusted for many years, and who know the seriousness of this matter, I then decided that GCOM was indeed prevented from conducting its work because of these disruptions.
Sis, can we hear your sequence of events?
All right, so let me just start my original statement, because I was listening, and that's why I deviated, because I want to just say clearly, what I just established here is that Mr. Arjun from the APNU has gotten his information from third-hand sources, and it is grossly inaccurate, and I'll tell you why. There were 29 persons in the room, 29 persons in the room at any point in time. Of course, there were people who were shifting out, but I can tell you one thing. Since March 2nd to March 5th, a total of 96 hours, I left the room for only 12 hours. Only 12 hours. And those 12 hours, I have been briefed properly, so I can say that I was in the room for 96 of those 96 hours. 84 hours first hand with my own eyes, and 12 hours second hand with someone else interpreting it. Mr. Arjun, for those 96 hours, you relied on third-hand information. So I think you should be more responsible coming on an international program
That's
like
your
this one,
sequence.
and not,
Let's not cross
say
talk.
things
Tell
like
us
that.
exactly what happened. Tell us exactly what
So
you
let's
saw.
start. But first of all, I want to express my profound disappointment in what I call the gang of six at the apex of GCOM. So before I tell you what happened, we got to frame the context. And the context is this. The context is this. GCOM has hundreds of workers, and all of them, many of them, are really, really good people. On election day, I worked with hundreds of them, and I'm sure there are hundreds more all over the place. They're extremely good people. They're good people, no, but I need to let the Guyanese people know.
We know that, and we have said
no,
it.
No. We don't know that. We don't know that because there's a perception. No, but let me make the point. There's a perception. There's a perception.
No, man. I don't want to go there. Listen, I've dealt with that. We have said that the people are decent people. We shouldn't hate them for doing their job. We want to know what
if I may be allowed to make a point, GCOM is a big organization. It spent $7 billion. There are hundreds of good human beings in that organization. So let's not attack GCOM, because the majority of the people at GCOM are working beyond the call of duty. But the apex at GCOM, the gang of six as I call them, they are really unfortunate souls.
So
because they are actively facilitating they actually actively facilitated, and I'm talking about the apex of the gang of six and the head of the Region 4 establishment at GCOM Region 4 office. They facilitated a non-completion of the verification and tabulation process at GCOM. So that is what really happened. And I can tell you in intimate details what happened, but that is the gist of what happened. A deliberate...
Can you tell us a summary? Can you tell us a summary what happened?
So that's what I'm saying. The summary is a gang of six, inclusive of the apex of the Region 4 GCOM office, facilitated a non-completion of the verification and tabulation process of the Region 4 statement of polls. And I'll give you a live example. There's 305 ballots. Dr. Rose, correct me if I'm wrong. 305 statement of polls in East Coast of Demerara. Zero was counted. Zero was counted. Zero was verified. Zero was tabulated via the legal process. There was, Dr. Rose, help me again. How many hundreds are here in Georgetown? I can tell you, all of the ones in North Georgetown were completed, even except for 5. There were 67 not completed in South Georgetown, verified and tabulated. On the East Bank, only 39 of the 156 were completed and tabulated. And this is the reality. Yet, the RO of Region 4, Mr. Clement Mingo, had the audacity to not follow the rule of law, exactly Article 84 of the Representations of the People's Act, that clearly says you have to verify all, you have to tabulate that in front of the representative of the political parties.
Yeah, we know that. We went through all of this before. This is why I'm asking you. For the sake of asking for brevity, I mean, tell us where it broke. Now, for example, one of the questions I got for you is that we have heard that, okay, you guys disrupted, you created such problems for that. So my thing to you, as one viewer sent in, and here is the question the viewer is asking, is it true or untrue that the disruption only occurred because you felt, the collective team, the 29 persons there, felt that Mingo was going to do something that is not allowed, that you didn't verify?
Again, mathematics seems to be defying some people, because the problem is, of the 29 persons in the room, only 3 were from the PPP. No way can 3 people outmaneuver an entire process. So I don't understand this question. There was no disruption driven by, and you said you people, I presume you're talking about the party that I represented.
No, I'm talking, no, not at all. I'm talking to you. You mean the collective of the other parties that's in the room.
Well, I don't know that people denied Mr. Mingo. Mr. Mingo denied himself a fair process.
Okay.
Sis,
he denied himself fair process.
Sis,
gentlemen, go.
Can you tell us when the verification started for Region 4? What happened? Why it was stopped? When it was supposed to restart? Why it stopped? And so on. Just give us in summary why this happened and when it happened.
Well, the quick answer to the why is, this is a plan that started many, many months ago by the key influencers, because as you look at it, and now that I had a chance to sleep last night, I'm reflecting on this thing entirely today, and I realize What happened over those days was not a causation of those days. It was planned strategies of pushing through a gate to deliver a certain product, and every time an attempt or a specific strategy failed, then another strategy came forward, and then that one failed, and then another strategy came forward. And what was very, very clear, the Gang of Six at the apex of GCOM was under the influence. GCOM, that leadership team in GCOM became but an extension of Congress Place. They moved when the Congress Place, and one of the things I noticed, when the AP and UAFC members in the room are never in the building when there's a pause. And as soon as they're ready to start, actually they don't start. What you see happens, the AP and UAFC comes in the room, and then 3 minutes after, GCOM comes in to start back. So it's a very coordinated attempt. Unlike the PPP and the other parties, they lived in the room for many days. Literally lived. Because in that room, let me give you a scenario. In that room had all the statements opposed for Region 4. So all eyes were, so we were counters as well as guards, if you understand what I mean. Because those statements opposed were the original, the only copy. The others are, we call duplicate copies.
Sis, what I'm asking you is, when the verification started for Region 4, how much was completed before it ended? Then when this restarted, how much more was done? Did it stop? Why it stopped, and so on? Can you give us a little sequence of that? And why it stopped?
Why it stopped? The trending excuse we keep getting from Mr. Mingo was that he has been working for so many hours. Like, he invited everybody in the first day to say, we're going to start at 2 a.m. We arrived at 2 a.m. He wasn't fully ready, but we waited around and he started. And he continued. You would break for regular breaks, lunch and, 10 minutes to breathe here and there and whatever. But those are regular breaks. When it really got systematically defective was when we start plowing. We went through North Georgetown quite easily because, of course, the results goes both ways. The PNC gets some, the PVP got some. North Georgetown is generally what you call an evenly split area. When it got really dicey is when we turned into South Georgetown. We could have seen the anxiety from the APNU people, and they started to, make a lot of excuses, objecting a lot on unnecessary things. And I kind of got a sense that they wanted to rest, but, we all knew Guyana was waiting. And even though we were all tired, what the PPPC was doing, it was tag teaming. So I suspected the APNU wanted to tag team too, but it stopped. It stopped when Mr. Mingo, dead in the night, says, I've had enough. I've been working long enough. I can't do this anymore, and I need a rest. Now, an entire nation is waiting on you, and you need rest. In normal organization, and Charles, you worked in organization, you have deputies. You deputize 2 of your DROs. There's over, there's over 100 DROs in Region 4. You can call any of the 2.
Can I ask you a quick question? Because this is just on the top of my head, and I'm just curious about this. Since you're there in ground zero, I do believe that Section 84 of the Representation of the People's Act and what it says about the statement of polls is really accurate, and that's the way we need to go. So my question is, do you believe that the statement of polls for Region 4 that is being held, I don't know if they're being held in GCOM, but do you think they have been compromised?
As of when we left yesterday, or actually put out of the building yesterday, the numbers we were getting from the original statement of polls, original, reconciled generally with the restatement of polls in the possession of the PPPC. So this is what I'm saying. Listen to me carefully. There were mathematical errors, small errors, 3 here and 4 there and so forth. But when there was 2 processes happened. One was a period when we did statement of polls to statement of polls. Generally, that went according to the law, and the numbers reconciled. There was, sometimes people made mathematical mistakes. 3 and they couldn't add 3 and 3 to 6. They put maybe 9 or something like that. But it wasn't material variances. Where it went wrong is when Mr. Mingo. Well, I mean, you see, the thing is, a story needs to be told.
But what I'm asking is, if the process continues, right? If the process continues to go back to the statement of polls, do you think they would have been compromised by now?
Well, the big challenge is the building was closed. Everybody was kicked out. One of our members got access to the building finally today to serve some documents on some GCOM officials, and the place which was designated as the counting room was totally emptied of furniture, printers, computers, everything left, including the statement of polls.
Good. That's one of the questions that's sent to me. So let me redirect. I know it's a repeat, but let me redirect it to you. So when you guys were basically ejected from the building, you left the statement of the polls as is, probably in a corner or in some plastic bags or whatever it was. So is your party concerned at this stage now that those things are beyond credibility now, or that they might have been tampered with?
I cannot answer that question for the party because the party has issued an official statement on that. But the reality is this. Let's live in a world of common sense now. In a world of common sense and in a world of lack of trust, because election time in Guyana is a world of lack of trust. There's no trust. There's zero trust in that room. Zero trust. Don't let anybody tell you. I've never felt that much tension in my life, in my entire life. There's zero trust in the room. But how can we have confidence in a document that we've lost eye contact on for close to 24 hours now?
Thank you. So here is the next question from Drona Nura. He said this person is asking if you would be able to answer with regards to the SOPs that has been released by the PPP and that seems to not be matching SOPs that members of the public would have released on Facebook, on social media.
Well, there's an allegation. There is an allegation that statement of polls were being systematically torn down in PNC strongholds, and I want to say PNC strongholds, and replaced by fake documents. So the challenge is, let's understand where the political parties got their statement of polls that they ought to have taken into the room. Okay. On the night of the elections, the presiding officer writes up her statement of polls, which is in 5 copies or 6 copies, many copies. And she signs them, the scrutineers from the APNU signs, the scrutineer from the PPP signs, because the other parties generally, and that document is torn and given to each individual scrutineers. So that is a consistent document to what ought to be the original in the room.
Thank you. So here, sorry to interject here. We have been joined by Mr. Lenox Shuman, who he can only stay a couple minutes with us. Lenox, welcome to the platform.
Well, good evening. How are you?
Well,
good evening, Lenox.
You tell me how we should be.
Oh man, well, let me read something to you. And I don't know if Mr. Ramjattan, I just got in on the back end of this, but if Mr. Ramjattan, being a lawyer and all that stuff, has been exposed to this, but part 9 of the Representation of the People's Act says, under Part 84 there, Section 84, it says, as soon as practicable after the receipt of all the ballot boxes and envelopes and the packets delivered to him in pursuant of section 8310, the returning officer shall, it doesn't say may or probably would, in the presence of such of the persons entitled under section 86.1 to be present as attended, ascertain the total votes cast in favor of each list in the district by adding up the votes recorded in favor of the list in accordance with the statements of poll, and thereupon publicly declare the votes recorded for each list of candidates. So that part of the law is very, very, very clear. It's very explicit. And if you want to know what Part 86.1 talks about, it says, right, authorized persons, no person shall be present at the counting of the votes except the returning officer and such other elections officers as he may appoint to assist him in the counting, members of the commission, duly appointed candidates, counting agents, and such other persons as, in the opinion of the returning officer, have good, and it goes on to say, reason to be present. So obviously the fact that the international observers have been accredited, we have every candidate and counting agents have been certified by the Guyana Elections Commission present. I don't see how there could be a breakdown in process nor a lack of understanding. I mean, at this point, it is ineffable as to what seems to be going on.
I have, did I hear you, Dr. Mahdi? Did I hear you? All right.
No, sorry. Go on.
For both of you, gentlemen, two things. One, the accusation was that there was an invasion of GCOM caused the count to stop. I want us to confirm is that so or not. Secondly, I think Sayes answered the question, but I want to reconfirm. In the statement of poll that the presiding officer would submit to the deputy returning officer and heads it with the GCOM, the statement of poll that each polling agent will have, who signed those statement of poll? And if, that's the second question. So if the statement of poll was removed from GCOM and a new set appears and the signature of the original persons on the original statement of poll is not there, then you know that will be fraud. So Sayes and Lenox, maybe you can help us.
Well, Charles, let me interject there because my battery is going to die soon. The battery is going to die soon, so let me finish
I'll send
this
your
here,
charger.
Right? Well, I don't have it right now. Maybe we should. It seems like someone else is talking.
No, go on, you alone.
All right. So the issue with this here right now is that they have attempted to open today a container containing copies, what I'd say copies of statements of polls, blank statements of polls, because we don't know if they wanted to use those within Region 4 or if they wanted to facilitate a recount in Regions 5 and 6. But one thing that we have to understand is that each statement of poll on all of the originals, it does contain a security feature, and to tamper with or destroy that, it is quite contrary to the law. So we were also made to understand that those statements of polls are in a secure location. However, we do not have the confidence in the administration because there is only right now one constitutional person within the administration, that exists, aside from the commissioners and the legal authority and so on and so forth. And that person is the president. And the president, at the end of the day, still, regardless of what it says, is the commander-in-chief. And that being said, I don't see how Mr. Ramjattan, Ms. Brooms, and Bolkan, and all of them seem to want to think that they could subvert the Constitution of Guyana, they could subvert the rule of law, and seek to undermine a legitimate process. I think these things are very, very troubling. The fact they have access to any elections commissioners, well, not commissioners, the agents, all other parties are denied access to these constitutional office bearers and members of the executive. These things are very troubling. They could furnish the Guyana Elections Commission with a request for a recount in regions 5 and 6, and the other political parties are given 10 minutes from 11:50 today to 12 o'clock today to facilitate a request for a recount. Now, how is that possible? It is very, very suspicious and very, very disturbing to know that the government has access to these officers and the rest of the political parties are left in pretty much out in the cold in the abyss.
Thank you, Lenox. I know that you got to go. Gentlemen, are there any other urgent questions for Lenox? His battery is quickly fading.
No.
Thank you. Well, thank you so much. Have a good night, and let's keep on doing what we feel is right. Thank you for joining us, Mr. Shuman.
Well, thank you, Seth. But before I part ways, let me say this. Based on the numbers that we have, is that the Liberty and Justice Party won 1 seat. There's a strong possibility also that the joiner of the list also may have won 2 seats. We've also won 2 regional seats. It would be a travesty. It would be a travesty to the indigenous peoples and to the Liberty and Justice Party and the people of Guyana to be denied those 3 seats in that sense. It would betray everything that we stand for. It would betray every single thing that we've worked for. And we are hopeful that whatever process is taken up from here must be legal, it must be legitimate, and must enjoy the scrutiny of all of the political parties with the support of the international observers. And we look forward to sitting in that seat in Parliament. And as far as we know right now, is that single seat that we would have won is indeed the balance of power. Now let's find a way to ensure that there is balance in this House and the Liberty and Justice Party gets its seat, and let's enjoy some relative peace and harmony so that we are not fighting, we don't tear this nation apart along racial lines.
Thank you.
Well said.
Yeah, well said.
Thank you. Thank you. We have a video that is lined up to show. I think that Mr. Harmon has made a statement with regards to the state of play in Guyana. So as soon as Devin is ready, he will bring that video on that relates Mr. Harmon's release, basically saying that swearing in is imminent. It's a matter of getting the court stuff out of the way, which is what Khemraj Ramjattan would have said earlier. So, gentlemen, what are your thoughts? I'm sorry we lost a Sace in the process as well.
Elections, of course, in Guyana, all of the results for the 10 electoral districts are in now. The last was the results for District 4, which is East Coast, Georgetown, East Bank, Demerara. Those numbers, when you add them up, shows clearly that the APNU AFC are well ahead of any of the other political parties that have contested these elections. What that means is that the next step should be for a declaration to be made by the Chief Elections Officer, followed by a meeting of the Guyana Elections Commission and a confirmation of those results by the Commission. Thereafter, the chairman sends a statement to the Chancellor of the Judiciary, who will then act upon that to have the president sworn in. So that is these are the steps that are to be taken. The Commission was meeting today. In fact, they should have met today to conclude those processes when it was served with an injunction on behalf of the People's Progressive Party. That injunction, of course, has several defects in the view of our attorneys. However, the chairman of the Elections Commission, herself being a former Justice of Appeal, decided that she will follow what the court says and have agreed that this procedure for the swearing in of the president will be put on hold and that the parties will go to court tomorrow at 10 o'clock, that is to the High Court, where the injunction will sought to be discharged. So that the situation has been put on hold until such time that that matter is discharged, and we expect that that to be done tomorrow. Once that is done, it will then clear the way for the commission to meet and for them to issue that statement, which will clear the way for the president to be sworn in. It is our expectation that this matter will be treated with some amount of speed, because the security situation in the country, which seems to have been to be promoted, and I would say the intellectual authors of this situation is the PPP and their call for the supporters to get engaged in the sorts of lawlessness that we have seen today at Bath and at several other places on the coast in Region 3, Region 4, and Region 5. In fact, I hear some things also happening in Region 6. So this is not a good situation, and we would like to have this matter dealt with very quickly. And so in order for there to be calm, stability, restraint, we have to have the president sworn in very quickly, and that his government be able to take the necessary steps to guarantee the peace, stability, and security of the people of this country. That is important. And also I want to take this opportunity to call upon the PPP leadership to exercise some amount of leadership and ask their supporters to refrain from the type of physical damage which I saw today occurring. There are children who are going home from school who were injured simply because they were in a DVG bus. That is nonsense. We are going to be sending some of our ministers to go to check the family and to check with the children to ensure that they are okay. But I'm calling on the leadership of the PPP to be responsible and not to allow our country to degenerate into strife. We have a beautiful country. We are blessed with resources by the Almighty, and it is in all our interests to make sure that we ensure that a good life for all Guyanese is preserved. We will work assiduously to ensure that good life and to make sure that progress continues in this country as we move it forward into a decade of development. One other point I just...
Okay, so there you go. That has been the statement by Mr. Joe Harmon. Just to summarize for viewers out there, the parties are going to court tomorrow at 10 a.m., which will determine the next steps. The APNU persons are hoping for a discharge of the injunction, but let us see. Gentlemen, what are your thoughts?
Well, to me, it's important that Guyanese, regardless of their race, creed, or religion, recognize that we own Guyana, and we also own obligation to develop Guyana in a just and fair way for everyone. We are already a country somewhat fractured by political allegiance and also racial allegiance. It will do us no good at this point to make things worse by going out into the streets, by blocking roads, or by terrorizing our fellow citizens because of our dissatisfaction with this situation. History is a cruel thing. Maybe 5 years from now, we might have a reversal. I'm not predicting, but I'm not saying. And my friends and colleagues in the opposition would not want members of whether it's APNUFC or some different formation to engage in any kind of disruptive behavior because they're dissatisfied with electoral result. Therefore, it's incumbent upon all of us, whether you're an ordinary citizen, a leader, a business person, or a civic organizer, to ensure that this process goes forward in an orderly and lawful manner. The courts are there as arbiters of disputes. GCOM is presently the referee. There's a problem that has arisen because of what the political parties in opposition believe to have been some bad activity. But the way to do it is to go through the legal process to seek redress. In this way, we keep our society whole, stable, and prosperous, and we don't create any more fractures in Guyana. So to the extent that Mr. Harmon is saying we'll go to the court and we'll see if this injunction is dislodged, I applaud that course of action. I also applaud the PPP and any other party which filed legal process to make sure that the result is in conformance with the law. Let's stick with the rule of law. Let's stick with seeking justice through the mechanisms that we've set up. Let's not resort to the streets or any other out of court methods to bring justice to what we believe is an injustice.
Well, York, I do have I have a different opinion here, and I think I do respect what the gentleman just said. But it is interesting to note that Khemraj Ramjattan did not know where the chairperson of GCOM is, but Mr. Harmon seems to be in touch with the chairperson. So here is my my take on this. I believe an injustice has done, and I've used the term, it's a bare-faced injustice, was done in GCOM. And I think that has to be addressed, and we have people in Guyana who are going against the grain of what was observed by the international observers. You've got almost every Western country who are focusing in Guyana have said that there's a problem here. We've got CARICOM, right? We have the European Union, Canada, the United States. We have in the United States Congress, we have members of Congress who have said, and they have issued statement that there is something wrong here, and the statement of polls has to reflect a credible and verifiable process. So, but here's the other point I do want to make, and where I disagree with the gentleman, with all due respect. I believe the focus has to continue, and the protest has to continue, but I'm not advocating blocking of roads. I'm not advocating violence, but I do believe the legal challenges has to continue. But international observers and those who are looking at Guyana will only go so far and take up the challenge if the protests, and I'm emphasizing peaceful protests, if that continues and it is sustained and done in a peaceful way, then you are now allowing international observers to say, hey, this problem has to be resolved, and maybe it will take outsiders, maybe outside organizations, outside political leaders, to bring the leaders of the opposition and members of the coalition together to work out some kind of modus vivendi. And this is not unusual. We had that after the 1997 election, where protest has led to a reduction of the term of the Janet Jagan presidency, and an agreement was worked out. But so I am saying very clearly, protest has to continue in two forms: peaceful on the streets. It has to continue also with the legal challenges, and that's my take on this.
And the other point is that, I mean, my friend Derek is saying that this legal process is it's the way to go. The fact is, this process should never have happened in the first place. If GCOM had followed the procedure they did for all the other 9 regions, they would have verified Region 4, and that would have done since Wednesday or Thursday, since Wednesday, that would have done. As we heard Says mention, there are over 100 deputy returning officers in Region 4. If one is tired, there are 100 more to come in there to continue the verification. And they went smoothly all the time. Then suddenly it stopped. And then a declaration is made without verifying the data. I mean, those things was not necessary. It is so miserable that our country that has, and there is a race issue. We talk about there's no racial issue. It is a race issue. And when you take away an election that is won by one side and you're putting in your own numbers and say that you won it, there is cause for concern. And those things need to be addressed. So I hope and pray tomorrow when they go to the Chief Justice that she will instruct that the verification continue and maybe give a time frame for it to be completed, and then the declaration is made, whatever those SOPs have that is not yet been verified. And I pray God that will happen, and each parties, APNU and PPP and all the others, they will accept that ruling and the findings, and whoever is to be sworn as president. As I said last night, I've never supported the PNC, I've never supported the PPP. I'm very abnormal in Guyana. But the thing is, now we have seen what these two parties can cause us. A lot of disruption. The people put their trust in them. I hope to pray God that by Monday, Pagwa Day, this thing hopefully should be resolved.
So we are rejoined. Unfortunately, says call dropped. So we are rejoined by says you're there?
Yes.
So says we just played the video where Joe Harmon has said to the public that he knows, he's saying with certainty that his APNU's votes are far ahead of what the PPP has, and so tomorrow he believes that the High Court is going to discharge the injunction and they can proceed with swearing in. What are your thoughts?
First of all, if you're so confident that you're far ahead of an alternative party, like, for example, the PPP in Berbice, Region 5 and Region 6, they were confident they're far ahead of any other party in Region 5, Region 5, which is West Coast Berbice, and Region 6, which is Quarantine, that when one of the alternative party asks for a recount, the PPP immediately says, yes, why not? True. Let's verify everything over again, because we're confident we're far ahead, right? Now, we have a situation in Region 4 where Mr. Harmon is saying, oh, we are confident we are far ahead of everyone else. So, but yet they're not allowing a completion of the verification process. And so hence, it doesn't add up. I mean, I think that it is all part of a grand scheme that was concocted after the...
Let me ask you this question, but let me ask the same question first to Mr. Arjun. Here is a viewer's question. So, legitimately, let's take Region 6. Legitimately, APNU, within the time frame, filed or applied for a recount. They demanded a recount. Which process ought to have started? Can there be a swearing in until that recount is completed?
If the law permits such a swearing in, of course. I know of no law, and perhaps you can school me tonight. I know of no law in the Constitution that says a recount, a request for a recount, will prevent the requesting party, which would have won the overall election, from having its presidential candidate from being sworn in. No such law do I know of. As I said, I'm willing to be schooled.
Okay. Sis?
I want to return back to numbers because, again, elections are about numbers.
But what do you think? Sorry, sis. I mean, I don't want to, sorry to interject, but I want to give me your opinion on this logic point that Region 6, APNO has filed for a recount, which has started. So, Ms. Arjun, I mean, we're trying to box up the laws at this moment, to your point. But says, here is the, and Dr. Amharak and Charles and everyone else. So here is the issue. The law allows 24 hours of a declaration for a demand for recount.
Correct.
That was done for Region 6. It would go by presumption, legally, I would presume, that there cannot be a declaration then if the recount is ongoing, because there is a timeline that was given. So what does the panelists think about this?
That doesn't stand for reason. I mean, you were saying because you asked for a recount in one region, and therefore, if you win sufficient votes to have your presidential candidate sworn in, that resort to a request for a recount prevents you from having your candidate sworn in. It just doesn't jive. I mean, there's so many more serious considerations. The primary one being the stability, the security of the country. Look, we have elections that are determined, and the Constitution provides that the way to challenge the result of an election is through an elections petition. That doesn't stop.
Oh, what absolute rubbish, sir. What absolute rubbish. You are trying to insert something. It's not the time for a petition. This is the time for the completion of a process. You can't go through another process if you haven't completed this process.
So the elections petition is what we use to determine the validity of an election.
If you had a completed process.
May I finish, sir?
If you had a completed process. No, I'm really sorry I had to do this to you, Derek.
Here is my dilemma.
Because you're misleading the world. You're misleading the world.
So
you have to complete a process. The process remains incomplete.
Says you are right, Mr. Arjun. So the process remains completed, but remember,
incompleted.
It has to be complete. But here is the other point.
And during that time, a president is sworn in.
Yeah, back to this point that I want us to deliberate briefly on. That is, if you have filed for a recount, then it means a declaration per se has not been made.
A legal,
that is your conclusion, and that's not.
It is not made.
That doesn't necessarily follow.
Here is my dilemma. I said tonight that Guyana is a political Titanic. The country is taking in water, and it's going to sink. Every 5 years, what has been achieved goes back to naught during an election cycle. Now, I want to know, a returning officer, why he had such power. Hear what Mr. Mingo said. I've counted 317 of the 892 ballot boxes in Region 4. I have enough votes here to tell me that APNO won the election. The reporter asked him, what if East Coast, the Moran East Bank? Me interested in that. APNO win. How can you make a declaration 317 ballot boxes out of 892? That's what I can't understand. I am not interested in no political party in Guyana. I never joined a political party in Guyana. The point is, I don't care who wins or loses. But how can you count 317 ballot boxes out of 892 and then tell me you're not interested in one region, you're interested in Georgetown? And as far as I'm concerned, APNO win the election. I'm fed up. That's what I'm going to do. How can you close off a process?
But that's the arrogance of the returning
No,
officer.
but why one man is allowed to do this?
Dr. Rose,
Yes.
I think you hit the nail on the head. Because if you do go back to the mathematics, and that's where I think I have much agreement on. If you look at the whole scenario, again, this is all political strategy, which is Dr. Rose forte, so I will defer to him on that. But the political strategy was, let us have a free and fair election. The election day was relatively okay. Actually, it was one of the better election day that I've witnessed since 1992. Everybody got to vote. I was in Anns Grove, I was in, Haslington, all these places. People were there from 6 o'clock, so people got to vote on both sides, okay? Both sides of the support base got to vote. But what happened? If you look at region 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, a PNC stronghold, which is 10, they all had the opportunity to do what the law says, as Mr. Shuman was reading out, which is to allow your representatives of your party to sit in a room with GCOM. GCOM does statement of poll to statement of poll, and those results were allowed to be declared lawfully. And after declaring region 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, the PPP was found to be 51,439 votes ahead, which GCOM declared. That's not fake numbers. GCOM declared that. Now, this is the dilemma that the APNU faced. Well, how much are we going to win Region 4 by? Because traditionally, the APNU wins Region 4. We're not going to deny that. But after looking at the real numbers, it was found that the APNU was ahead only by 34,168, I think. 34,168 cannot overcome 51,439. And that is the dilemma the APNU face. And that is why they are reluctant to complete the verification and tabulation process.
Now, I want to know this. Who appoint the regional officers, like Mingo? Is GCOM? So why GCOM can't say, no, Mr. Mingo, go and count every SOPs in the region? Why GCOM can't say that? The thing is, I believe in principle. I'm not interested in party. Guyana comes forward before any one of us and any political party and any political leaders. Because we're all going to die and leave Guyana there. So my point is, why the chairperson or the CEO can't tell Mingo, go and count all the results? You can't bring 317 and say, well, APNU won or the PP won or whoever won. Go and count all of them. Why did they say this? Can I take my students? I got in my PhD class 15 students. Can I mark 5 papers and said, all you all fail or all you all pass? What is this? This is what I can't understand. And Ramjattan came here tonight and I'm asking a direct question, Mr. Dr. Mohammed, you interject many times, but he's called the issue. I'm saying to you, if 10 political parties got the same SOPs that correspond with GCOM SOPs brought to GCOM by the returning officers, and Mr. Mingo SOP is different, who are you going to believe, Mr. Mingo or the 10? This is what I want to know. I don't care about no political party. No one don't tell me about political party. Forget political party. Put the people's wishes first, put the country first. Which one are you going to believe? In other words, if 10 people in this room and 9 say one thing and 1 said no, this is what it said, who are you going to believe said the right thing? Is the 1 or the 9? So I want to know, why is it that this man could not be told, go and count the rest of the votes? It does not make sense. It is blatant and it is stupid. It is stupid to the highest level. This is why it become a laughing stock to the rest of the Caribbean, to the world. Even the State Department interjected today. The Assistant Superintendent of State said that he wants the results to be counted for the Western Hemisphere. The United Nations interjected. Why are we putting our dirty issues out there? Why?
Just a point of correction. I have read what the State Department said, and the State Department said that it was concerned. The State Department did not recommend what to do. That is not consistent with State Department protocol.
But my friend, concern means a lot in the international community.
But to say,
when you say
what to do is something different.
But having said that,
they did not say that you should recount or you should do verification. They said it was concern. Concern could mean many things, including the fact that they didn't like the reports they were getting from observers and others. It didn't mean that they were dissatisfied or were satisfied. What we must do now is to ensure that as Guyanese, we fashion a way to keep our country together and to continue to benefit from what we have been given as a bounty in that country.
And to my friend Derek, as Guyanese, the first thing we should do is to be honest and to go back and verify those statement of polls, and whatever result comes out of that, Mr. Derek, my friend, that will be Guyanese.
I'm really sorry that I had to be sorry.
I want to bring back Stace to the discussion because Stace, your point has consistently been one of emotions aside, fellas, due process. And
due process.
Yeah.
Due process.
Yeah, so let's go back to that because everybody knows and everybody has an opinion as to where we are and what has caused it there.
No, but Derek talks about peace. Derek talks about peace. And the problem, the best avenue to peace is following the rule of law and following due process. I am not asking here for any special favors. I am not here asking for privilege. I'm not asking here for an advantage. I am asking for follow the rule of law and follow due process. Let us do what Region 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9, and 10 did. Region 4, how come it's an outlier from all the other regions of Guyana? Mr. Mingo clearly made an error in judgment. He made a mistake. And he needs to correct this error. Now, the question is, the integrity of the statement of poll is now questionable. So, the problem, I suspect, because these things have been moved, we have many questions to ask.
And
who moved them?
Right.
Were they?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Were they moved on the protocol?
Right.
I mean, are they in a safe place? Are they being interfered with?
Banmati Jane Ram has agreed with you, Stace, in terms of making the statement that peace goes hand in hand with justice. So, and again, I mean, I'm not saying, I think we all abhor any situation that is lack of peace. I've spent all my day today on social media calling, let us not rise up, let us not react, let us not, behave in any way that would not be something that we would want. Let's not do unto others that we don't want to have done to ourselves. And I want to bring this panel's attention to a couple of things. Look, across this country, everybody's emotion high at this stage. But it's leading us down the wrong path. Whatever has happened politically, my brothers and sisters, let us not become so consumed by it that we start hurting each other. Already somebody has been shot dead at Cotton Tree. Already a couple persons have been shot at Cotton Tree and at Luziknan. Already I've just received reports of breaking in happened at Rosignol. We've had problems at West Demerara. We've had problems West Coast. We're having problems all over the country, but please.
Diamond Horse selling, all these places are having activism.
I would like all of you to join me. You can be active, but you don't, please, no.
Well, if you permit me,
just a second. So let's adopt a concept of no violence. Protest peacefully. Do not attack anyone. Look, my tears flow today when I heard that school children were threatened or hurt. We cannot do this to each other. What do the children, what have they done to earn such handling? So, gentlemen, I don't care what is our political persuasion. Violence is not the answer. Please join me in this call. Says.
Well, let me just tell you, I want to read a statement that I made today. I want to read a statement that I made today. Can I read the statement? Please. Thanks. Fellow Guyanese, this is a message of peace and goodwill, and it's an attempt to speak to the needs of the times. Guyanese, we are a peaceful people. Let us continue to serve our nation and foil this attempt to destroy our democracy. That is our right, but with right comes responsibility. With rights comes responsibility. Please do not use violence. Let us respect the philosophy of ahimsa, which is nonviolence, basically. This is the first time in our history that the Americans have issued such strong statements in favor of democracy in Guyana. So take heart from that. Help is on its way. Let us continue to work for a political system that forges a nation on a foundation of love.
Thank you.
And within a framework of peace, prosperity, and plenty.
Dr. Mohammed,
injustice will not survive in Guyana.
Thank you, sir.
Can I just read a statement?
Dr. Rhodes.
United States Department under Secretary of State, Mr. Meiser Kodak, said that we are deeply concerned about allegations of fraud in Guyana's election. We call upon GECOM not to declare a winner unless the results are properly verified. We call on the Election Commission to return to the established procedure and not to declare a winner until a credible vote tabulation process has been completed. The people of Guyana deserve this. The GECOM declaration of the last results which give APNU 1,250, which give up the APNC coalition 136 votes, 136,235 votes in Region 4, and the PP 77,215 votes should be verified. They called for it to be verified, and I said it just now. That's what the State Department said. Look, it's there. They called for a verification of it.
All right, so I stand corrected. They call for verification.
Yeah, yes, you stand corrected because I want to bring. Sorry, go on. Sorry.
And the United Nations did the same thing as well. And the Commonwealth, the Security Commonwealth, did all the missing statements today.
I haven't heard the statement from the United Nations, and I haven't heard it from.
I got them here.
Well, I haven't heard. So to say, because sometimes we.
Please read them, Doctor. Please read them, Doctor. They're very important statements.
We don't need to read them. What we need to do is to ensure.
Please read them, Dr. Rose.
Wait a second, sis.
Our
democracy doesn't need to be dictated to by friendly countries. And I consider the United States to be friendly, Britain, so on and so forth. What we need to do at this point is to do what is best for Guyana. If it means adopting any electoral process that verifies indeed that APU and AFC did in fact win, we do it. If we need to go to court, we do it. But we need to remember that after this rather tumultuous and possibly dangerous period, that we have to run Guyana. We have to carve a Guyana that is suitable for the interests of Guyanese. So we have to work together. So we will listen to the UN, we will listen to the Commonwealth, we will listen to the US. But ultimately, we will sit down as Guyanese and fashion what is the best methods, the best ways, the best means of developing our country.
But yes, but you are basically saying that after the fact we must sit together, so that what we seem to be promoting then is that whatever has happened, let's move on, put it behind us and try to stop it in the future. The problem is whether those, look, I voted, my vote wasn't verified, my vote must count. And that's what people feel.
One of the features of human existence is that their mistakes, their faults. We live in a democracy that's more than 200 years old. We just had a debacle in Iowa. and we might have other problems along the way. But what is important is that we recognize that because we're fallible, because we make mistakes, we must be willing to sit down and talk and find ways of solving the problem. What we're having tonight, this conversation,
But
50 years from now, 50 years from now, we might have different problems, but there'll be problems.
No, but sorry to interject, but here is the issue. We have been sitting on for the last 10 years at least, or 15 years. You have had Herdmanston Accord, you have had the CARICOM agreement, you have had various things happen. Carter Center has made numerous recommendations. International observers made recommendations to GCOM to better their system. Zilch, nada, nothing.
All right, so, yo, what my friend Derek is saying, mistakes is different from fraud. What happened in Region 4 is not a mistake, it is fraud. It's like you having a referee.
I don't know that.
Well, we will find out if there's a verification.
We don't know that.
What we have a referee, and we're claiming GCOM is that referee. But when the referee tied the challenge hand on his back, how can he fight? That is what Region 4 referee is doing. They are not following, as Says mentioned, procedure, policy. What need to be done? Do it, guys. It will take you 10 hours to do it, and it's all over. What is wrong with that?
No.
And none of this would have gone to court. The real winner would have been, whether it's APNU or PEP, would have been declared if that process was done. They shelved it because it's all fraud.
Let me make a...
Sis, can you hold your point?
Let me make a...
Dr. Ramjattan, we're trying to make a point.
Oh, sorry. Go on. I'll hold. I'll hold.
Perhaps he's not hearing us.
Not hearing you.
No, I'm hearing. No,
not you, Sis, not you. And he's speaking, you can't hear him. Maybe his sound is off.
Dr. Amar, can you click the... There you
Sis, are you still in Guyana?
Yes.
Okay.
I am.
So let me ask you this. It seems from that video we saw earlier with Harmon and based on what Khemraj is saying, it seems like they are going to go ahead at some point to do a swearing in. So my question to you is this. Well, let me ask you. I don't want to put words in your mouth. How do you see things playing out? Because in my mind, I think the coalition will go ahead and do a swearing in as soon as possible. And how do you see things playing out at that point and maybe after that in Guyana?
Well, first of all, Robert Mugabe swore himself in several times. So anybody can swear themselves in. And if you understand the context of that, that is what I'm saying. Anybody can swear themselves in. It doesn't mean Robert Mugabe won legitimate elections in the latter part of his life. Maduro swore himself in even though they themselves did not have the chance to verify those votes. So there are instances where political leaders swore themselves in banana republics and bogus administration. So I'm not gonna fortune tell on this. I believe that we as a Guyanese people, the majority of us wants to adhere to the rule of law. And the rule of law clearly dictates that we have to have a completed verification and tabulation process. I also know the PVP has applied for a recount on all 879 boxes in Region 4, which means we'll have to have a process whereby the boxes will have to be opened, and we'll spend half of a day counting all 879 of them at GCOM in a safe environment to give peace to everyone. But the question remains, Guyana does have some healing to do. I wasn't wrong in the 60s. From my lifetime, I lived 2 pieces of Borneo, and I can tell you this. This country has never been as broken as it is today. It is divided. It has never been as divided as it is today.
So sis,
it has never been, its potential has never been at a point where it can all dissipate as it has been today. And I'm sorry I have to say this because I don't know the entire Burnham period, but from the period that I live in Burnham, around 1980 and so forth,
sis,
I believe, in my opinion, let me finish the point, that this country, Mr. Grange, has done massive damage to the social cohesion, competence of this country.
Correct. But sis, here is another perspective. Look, regardless of how you may feel, right? Regardless of how you may feel as a supporter to a particular platform, there is half of this population that totally disagrees with you. The issue here, how can we reconcile these two sides without getting to any stage of violence? Whatever happens in the 60s and 70s, history certainly has a way of repeating itself. And if we're not careful, we're heading down the wrong road. So I
believe institutions, especially independent institutions, are the only opportunity we can have to fix this country. We have to have a strong and independent judiciary. We have to have a strong and independent Guyana police force. I have witnessed with my own eyes policemen who became political operative over the last 3 days. So I'm saying, the point I'm trying to make, the institutions of Guyana has to be empowered and be made more independent so that they follow the rule of law rather than a political diktat.
So let me confirm with viewers that unfortunately, we have gotten, iNews has released that, the person is indeed from Cotton Tree, was shot dead by police. However, what we are saying to show this platform, we are saying that let there be peace, let us not protest in any way that will create a violence or create any form of hooliganism. Protest if you have to. Do not block the public roads. There are sick people who needs to get to the hospital. You can make your point without disrupting the country. You can disrupt private stuff, your own stuff. You can stop working if you are there. I mean, I can't tell people what to do, but there are ways that peaceful protest can take place. Let us not disrupt the rest of, the other people, because today, unfortunately, I believe it was a nurse that drove through or drove nearby some of the areas where protesters were there. And this is a medical personnel, and her car was sadly very damaged by some of the protesters. It doesn't call for that. We need to let people go where they are. Dr. Rose.
Yes. Look, I am puzzled to know how Guyana will develop. And we can't have development like this here. Half the population is pulling against the other half. And this is caused by our politicians. They can't mend fences from the top. If they mend fences from the top, this will actually disseminate to the bottom. And one of the worst things in life is to be in denial. If you're in denial of something that is wrong, you can't fix it. You have to acknowledge before you fix it. Our Minister of Public Security, I'm assuming he should have people around him to tell him something. This guy was shot at 4 o'clock this afternoon in Cotton 3, Devon. The video is there. He was on the ground. He put his hands up and police shot him on the ground. The video is there. The video will not lie. And he said he's a young girl. My point is this. How can we have a minister? I am a journalist writing for papers. And I get 6, 7 different sources will send this information to me. I got the video here. So my point is, how can you come on television 7:30 at night and you don't know as a girl? If you should have your people around you calling you and giving this information. Hey, security, somebody shot there, a young man. If you can't do this, how in the name of God these people, PUP ministers, PAPNU ministers, they're all about the same. How can they develop this country?
Well, I understand Dr. Rose's discontent with Mr. Ramjattan's lack of information on this point, but listen, I don't know the pressures, I don't know the demands, of Mr. Ramjattan before he came on the show. I don't know what is going on. We are in a crisis. Sis is there. He can better speak to the Yog. You can. He's in charge of the Minister of Security. I don't want to belabor the point, but I'm saying that despite his failing tonight, we should not come to the conclusion that he is not capable, Sis is not capable, Yog is not capable. We have sufficient talents within Guyana and without Guyana to use the resources to transform Guyana to a prosperous state. I have no doubt that we can do that. Now, despite that failing of Mr. Ramjattan, if you want to call it that.
Okay, let me say this. He came here, when he was here, or somebody read, he deported 3 Russians who came to help the people with the elections. None of the media carry that story today. And the Russian embassy says they don't know of any Russian here and were deported. Chandas took bribe and they're investigating him. Going to issue an order to get him deported back to Guyana. No proof validated these things. As Dr. Rahman said, you don't issue these flippant statements. You are an important minister. Get your people there to give you some report. I am a part-time journalist, and I give 7, 8, 9 people with pipe information to me. So I'm saying, how can you, as a minister, I'm not talking about Dr. Yog or Sis or anybody else, you as a minister, if you don't have this type of information 3 or 4 years after, what that tells me?
Yog, if you may permit me, Dr. Rose made a telling point. He's made some others, but a rather telling point not too long ago. He said that he can't see how the country will develop with one side, one half the population pulling on one side and the other half pulling on the other side. I think that's such an important thing for us to address. He attributes the problem, like many other people, to the politicians. The politicians have a role to play, and indeed have contributed. But to me, it is the Guyanese population that have to start using their many contacts on a daily basis to develop a society that's based on respect for each other. This process has to be from the bottom up. Politicians can teach us, but on a daily basis, we need to have that conversation, that interaction that will allow us to begin to trust each other and work together to build Guyana. That to me is one of the most important tasks we have ahead as a people.
I agree with Mr. Arjun there. I agree with him, but you know the hard reality on the ground, and I'm a numbers person. 266,000 Guyanese depend on buying and selling to make a living. They don't have time but unity. It has to come from the top. 266,000 Guyanese across the country depend on buying and selling. In Georgia, you get maybe 100,000 in Georgia and the suburbs alone. In the country, quarantine. When was the last time we went up to New Amsterdam, went up to Perversion? You have more sellers than buyers. New Amsterdam market, in front of it, everybody selling something. Skella market, everybody selling something. Portland market, everybody selling something. People got no time for the things we're talking about. Development, reason, let us unify and so forth. They got to hustle to put food on the table. I'm hoping that oil money brings some relief to these people. I'm hoping. Because when you have almost over a quarter of your population got to rely to go there early in the morning to buy, sell something, to put food on the table for the children, they don't have time about unity. That doesn't scratch their heads. They don't have time about constitutional reform. They want the money now to put food on the table, bread and butter issues. And this is what the politicians, I'm saying, are not addressing. They talk about constitutional reform, this reform. That's how to bring food to the average person. It's not going to happen. And it's best we stick to that reality. Politics is about pragmatism. And you got to know what your people need. And this is why one politician in the Caribbean I tipped my hat off to, James Mitchell. He died from St. Vincent Grenadines. He was the only real politician. And there's another one too, Michael Manley. But apart from that, you do not talk up there and the people down here, they need food. I give you the statistics. 266,000 Guyanese buy and sell. That's an approximation in the country to make a living. 266,000.
Yeah, well, we have to be careful, when we say, and I'm not being critical here, I'm just saying, we have to be careful when we make statements like, we have to, we can blame people. Now, people in Guyana are voting. In their minds, if an Amerindian vote for Lenox Shuman, or an Indian vote for the PPP, or an African vote for APNU, they are making, in their minds, a rational calculation, and they're making a vote based on their belief that their vote will elect a party that will represent their interests. That's what political parties do, right? They want to win elections, and they also have to take care of the people who follow them. But the problem in Guyana is it can only be fixed and it can only be solved if politicians, it has to be a top-down approach. There have been many attempts in the past, right, to get leaders to work together. But the problem is there are institutions that are divided, political parties are divided, and we don't have a visionary leader who can say, look, let's admit, for instance, that we've made mistakes in the past and there have been transgressions. When was the last time we've heard politicians of the major parties make statements to that effect, that things were done in the past that we regret, so therefore here's an apology and let's move on. And here is a vision, not a vision of my political party or your political party, but here is a vision how we can actually, work together and bring people together. So politicians are at a moment, where they're sloganizing, right? They're talking about social cohesion. We can talk about national front government and all of those things, but there's been no serious attempt, in my view, among politicians to kind of work together to try to solve this problem, even in a small way. And I do believe that the bigger issue here is not necessarily constitutional reform. That's a problem, yes, and it has to be addressed. But I think the problem has to be solved by folks on the top who can come together and come up with a rational plan, how we can actually live together.
So, I want to make a point. I was listening, and I really believe that while I respect a lot of the framing that is being done, the conversation again is being stepped away from reality. Framing academically is wonderful stuff when things are going great, as you want to become better. But in a messy situation that survives in Guyana right now, we need pragmatism, real hard-nosed pragmatism. And I'll give you a case. When a political party can take the liberty to not allow the voice of the people to be represented by way of a ballot. Because I'll give you an example. We were sitting there in the room, and Charles listened to this carefully.
Sis, sorry to interject. We have Anil Nandlall. Sorry, sis. Just hold the thought 1 minute. We have Anil responding to Joe Harmon's earlier statement. So let's just listen to that for a minute, please.
Okay.
What the returning officer was doing at Ashbin Building was part of that process. It was to verify the statements of polls submitted to him for the various polling stations within region number 4. That process is a mandatory process required by the law. I heard earlier Mr. Ford saying that that is an administrative process and is not provided for in the law. That is a wholly inaccurate statement. The verification of the statements of polls collected and examined before all the political parties is a component of the electoral process mandated by the law, and therefore it must be complied with. Now, as you are aware, that process was aborted by the returning officer for region number 4, and he has disappeared. And I don't need to give you all the dramatic things that occurred preceding that and subsequent to that. But I just want to get directly to the court action that Mr. Harmon spoke about. As you know, we went to the High Court and we were able to obtain several injunctions. One, restraining the returning officer from disclosing the results, disclosing his tabulated results, until and unless he verifies and completes that verification process. Secondly, an order compelling him to complete that verification process. And thirdly, an order restraining the entire commission from declaring any final results unless and until the returning officer complies with that section and completes the verification process. Today, the matter was fixed tomorrow at 10:30 a.m. for hearing. Up to now, I was unable to serve the respondents in the case. The respondents are the chairperson, GCOM, and the Chief Elections Officer, and I believe Mingo, Mr. Clement Mingo. All three of them, the chairperson, and everybody missing. I went to the marshals went to GCOM's office and they refused to accept service. Mr. Lowenfield office refused to accept service, and we don't know where to find Mr. Mingo. The court orders were served earlier, and I had explained that in another Facebook post. But in terms of tomorrow, these the proceedings itself have not yet been served, but it's fixed for hearing tomorrow. I heard Mr. Harmon make some very alarming statements. He said that once he is assured, he speaks from a position of confidence, that the injunctions granted will be discharged. I don't know how Mr. Harmon knows that, how he can speak for the judiciary, how he knows that the case will be heard and determined tomorrow. These matters this matter raises important and fundamental issues of law of public importance. I don't know how Mr. Harmon knows that all the issues would be heard and determined in a few hours by the judge. I don't know how he knows that. I don't know that he can speak for the judge. He then proceeds to say that when the injunctions are discharged, then Justice Claudette Singh will proceed to swear in Mr. Granger. I don't know how he can speak for Claudette Singh. Nobody has been able to find Miss Claudette Singh. Marshals are looking for her, the political parties are looking for her, the observers are looking for her, the international community is looking for her, but yet Mr. Harmon knows that she will be swearing in Mr. Granger after the case is determined tomorrow. So Mr. Harmon knows two things that nobody else knows. One, that the case will be concluded tomorrow, the injunctions will be discharged, and three, that Madam Justice Claudette Singh will be available to swear in Mr. Granger. Mr. Harmon also seemed to know the Chancellor's schedule, because Mr. Granger, if he has to be sworn in, will have to be sworn in by the Chancellor. So he also knows the Chancellor's schedule and availability. But most importantly, he has made a very, very misleading statement, which I must clarify. Mr. Harmon obviously has not read the law in relation to elections, because a new president can only be sworn in when the election results are declared by the Elections Commission, not the Chief Elections Officer, as Mr. Harmon thinks. Once the verification exercise of Region 4 is completed, then that is presented to Mr. Chief Elections Officer, who will then tabulate all the results for all the 10 regions, because he would have received reports from 10 ROs, And once he receive those reports, he must then put them together, and he must prepare a report in manual form and in electronic form and presents that to the commission. The commission then has to meet, because I don't know how he will present it to the commission.
Let's take the conversation. I mean, that clarification, I think, is what we were looking for, because Harmon, to the viewers out there, Harmon had said that tomorrow, 10 o'clock, he's hoping that they
Hey, excuse me, yo, just 1 second. I have to call it a night. It's been a long day for me, so I just want to say good night to everybody, and hopefully I can join you guys tomorrow.
Thank you, and you have a good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
So everyone basically, they have been concerned with what Mr. Harmon is saying. Now, Anil Nandlall would have responded. Gentlemen, Says, I'll start with you first for your comments on what Anil said.
I think Anil is absolutely correct, because an injunction is in play, and as Anil quite rightly say, none of us should be try to second guess what the judge will do. So when something is in front of a judge like that, the less said externally, the better. Let the judge do her work, and she will interpret the law on whether the injunction was properly and accurately represent the reality. So for me, I would not want to talk further on that. But what I want to talk about is reality, the point that I was making before the video came on. And I want to go back into that room for 2 minutes and tell you why this injunction was filed. Why? No, listen. Can I make the point, please?
Yes, keep it brief.
The reason why this injunction was filed, this is very extremely important. We were sitting in the room, and a box called Kurukuru Baradina came up. The statement of all polls in front of us said APNU AFC 187. The spreadsheet that the GCOM official had in front of her, she declared 287. Same thing happened again in Kurukuru Barini being in the Knox box. The official statement of poll says 211.
Yeah.
The GCOM official said 311.
Right.
Moving on, the third box, 228 is the official thing. And the official said 328. The reality is, as Dr. Jagdeo said, there were 21 boxes that was counted. 17 of them had material mistakes.
Correct. We had this report yesterday, says, because a number of the persons in
right, but so that is why the injunction was filed. So my question, as I said, how would any rational person, and again, I don't want to say a lot because it is something that is going to be deliberated on. This would be a better conversation for tomorrow, trying to because the point is tomorrow would be a better day to discuss this injunction after the judge has spoken.
Okay, great. Well, Charles
says, you have joined with my friend Derek and saying it's a mistake. It is not a mistake. It is fraud. You cannot tell me 187 becomes 287 and 154 becomes 254 and 67 becomes 167. That is fraud.
I never characterize anything.
No, this is a mistake.
I don't know. I said in life there are mistakes.
Yeah.
I never said that particular
Well, we are
action
dealing
was a
specifically with GCOM. We are dealing with the elections, and it's implying that whatever Mr. Mingo presented is a mistake. It is not.
No, not at all.
Okay.
Listen, look, what CS is talking about. I heard when I was around Congress is that, there were boxes that had information that shouldn't have been there, and so we could go on at length discussing who did what and who didn't do anything. I'm hoping that there is a resolution. And specifically to what Mr. Nandlall just said, I think Harmon didn't definitively say that there will be a decision. I said they're going in front of to the High Court, and they're hoping that this thing is dislodged. I didn't remember him saying that tomorrow it will come to the end. He said he's hoping that it comes to an end. So that's what I heard.
I want to say something quickly.
Yes, but
there's the bigger picture I'm painting here. We know since, and I was in Guyana, since the days of Apan Chat, I don't even know what it means, but it said somebody said vote for you. Guyana's been divided in two races. Lenox Shuman formed his party. He came to New York and met him. But you know what I told him? Guyana already is badly divided within two races. Your Amerindian party will make it divided into three now. You represent 51,000 Amerindians. I said, Lenox, why didn't you join with one of those two parties of your choice? I don't care, APNU, PP, whatever it is. He said, no, he can't join them. So now, they didn't make much inroad now, but maybe by the next election, Amerindians say they voted for their own party. So Guyana will even be further divided among the three races. Is that good for the country? I can give you a number of countries that have been divided among not races, but just ethnicity, and they've never been able to develop. But I'm not going to go there. So this is even worse for Guyana. People are looking at it this way. I mean, it's good to have an Amerindian party. He said because the people were not represented by the two major parties. But is that something Guyana want to go towards now? He hasn't made much traction now, but 5 years from now, maybe, another 10 years, maybe. And that, I don't think, bodes well for Guyana. That's what I'm afraid of.
I would beg to disagree, because if the Indians, by and large, vote for the PPP, that is their fundamental right. If the Africans vote for the PNC, and the Amerindians vote for Amerindian party, and the mixed race vote for a mixed race party, I think that will be great for Guyana, because now no party will control parliament, and everyone will have to work together, or at least 2 or 3 parties, to govern the country. That will be good for Guyana, Dr. Rose, and I fully agree with that. Okay. Let's not stop the racial voting if that is what people feel good about. That's fine. So if we have 4 horses in the race, we'll have 4 different groups together. We will run Guyana better, and I will fully support Mr. Shuman to go after the Amerindian votes.
Thank you. So, gentlemen, we wanna close our show off. It's been a long evening and a long day, of course. I need to make an announcement. I wish to announce that the Pagua Festival that we normally hold at this Guyana National Stadium, it usually attracts about 40,000 persons every year. That has been cancelled. Because of the uncertainty in country, we have cancelled that. So we just want a public service message to go out. We have shared information all over social media about it. So that has been cancelled. I would like to ensure that we call on our brothers and sisters across Guyana to please be peaceful in whatever we do. Do not attack. Do not vilify. Do not do anything that can bring harm to people or properties. Please let us be civil in our protest. Say your closing comments, please.
Yes, I am very appreciative of you making that call to cancel Pagua, because I personally have made that decision not to partake in Pagua, because Hindus have a tradition. When you have a death in your family, you do not participate in the festival of Holi as respect out of the dead. In my Guyanese family, we have a debt. Democracy has died over the last 6 days. Yes, and until we have life into such a process again, I do not believe that any Guyanese in their righteous mind should be taking part in Pagua. But my closing comment is, I am hoping that due process is followed tomorrow in the courts. I am hoping for a quick dispensation of the judgment so that Guyana can do what is lawful. I'm hoping that the more pressure is brought to bear by the international community on the return of democracy to this country. And I'm hoping that everybody take a step back and stop thinking about themselves and start thinking about Guyana, start thinking about the Guyanese people, and let us build this country as one of our songs says. Let us cooperate for Guyana. I know that it feels bad when you lose, but I'm appealing to the winner that they need to go back to reforming that constitution, reforming it to make it stronger so that the opposition doesn't feel that winner take all is a reality anymore. We want to make sure that Parliament is stronger, the institutions are stronger, the opposition have a more greater say in the national policy making framework of the country, and that we can press on. Yes, we will have differences, but we must all be pressing on in the same direction. Thank you.
Thank you, sis. Just before I go to our other panelists, let me just make one correction. Dr. Raquel Thomas Caesar has asked us to note that Lenox Shuman party is not an Amerindian party, and that was not how they had sold it. People calling it that because he is of the indigenous peoples, but maybe he can clear that up. Thank you for that observation, Doc. Mr. Arjun, your closing comments.
Well, Guyana has experienced many serious problems, and it has been at the precipice, but hasn't gone over, except back in '63 when we had the riots. This is one of those trying times again, but I believe the good sense, the commitment of Guyanese to Guyana, and the continuing conversations that Guyanese are having will see us through this difficult period. I have implicit faith in my people that despite what they might encounter, the whole concept of one people, one nation, one destiny shines true in their heart and will inform their actions, even if their actions are deviant as has happened here in a few incidents around the country, that we will do the right thing. I just want to say finally that I am thankful, and I've said this to Noir, for this particular platform. We need to continue to have these conversations, because it's through these conversations, these interactions, that we will be able to communicate with each other and find ways of making our country proud of us and we proud of our country.
Thank you for your comment. Let's go to Charles, my brother.
And I just want to pick up on what C said. It's so sad that the Pago celebration has been cancelled, and you mentioned it, Yo. It reminded me of the 1997 election with the turmoil. The Diwali parade was cancelled. So this is 2 Hindu festival has been cancelled because of election problem. We hope this will not happen again. The problem we have, my son, when he was going to grade school here in New York, he came home one day and he said, and it was autumn, and he said, Dad, the leaves, the color of the leaves on the trees are the leaves' true colors. I said, really? He said, yes, because in the summertime, as the sun shines on the leaf and they produce chlorophyll, the color changed to green. I said, whoa, that's beautiful. What I'm using that analogy for is that we have seen the true GCOM in the last week. They're hiding behind a facade. In my humble opinion, Mr. Lowenfield and Mr. Mingo are in the camp of APNU. I might be wrong, But the perception I'm getting from their action is that they are now being seen exactly who they are. And they are not independent referees as they're supposed to be. They are partisan, and the Elections Commission should have no place for people like them. They should go. The same problem I can talk about is that when Mr. Gokul, he was accused of the same thing. That's not a place for partisan people. And I hope after these fiascos are over, that these two gentlemen will not be a part of GCOM. And I pray God that there are enough independent people in Guyana to ensure that our elections are held free and fair, without intimidation, and at the end of the day, whoever wins, they will be declared winner. So when the perception now is that this Region 4, whatever the number is a fudge number created by Mr. Mingo and in collusion with Mr. Lowingfield, which again, I have no proof to say that, but that's my opinion. They have squandered the entire election, a beautiful election. Election day, everyone report how beautiful the election was. It was the best they've seen for many, many years. Says you testify to that. Mr. Arjun was there, I'm sure you'll testify to that. Now, the action of these two gentlemen has brought the entire election into disrepute. That cannot happen. It must not happen. And I pray tomorrow that when the Chief Justice hears this matter, that she will instruct GCOM to continue the verification as the law prescribed, and whoever wins after that process will and must be declared the winner of the election. The rest of it is irrelevant. The process must be followed, and I hope that Guyana, not the PPP, not the PNC, but Guyana will be the winner.
Thank you, Brother Charles. And let me just say as a caution, thank you again, Drona Nura, for correcting us. She's saying that we misread he's saying that we misread the question. The question was why APNU's SOP is different from those of the international community and the other political parties. Thank you for the correction, and I do believe that by and large we have dealt with the question and may have answered it. Dr. Thomas has also asked us to be cognizant and to let everybody be cognizant. I'll quote from what she says. Our children have common entrance exams in 3 weeks. Wow. What are we teaching them? Has this gone so far that citizens can now demand a change? No one wins. We have 87% forest and fresh water, better than all the oil in the world. Yeah. And yes, she's absolutely right. Whoever wins presidency, Guyana loses. Brother Dr. Rose.
Yes. Now, I want to call on all the leaders in Guyana to do one thing, and that is to put the country first. Yeah. I want to call on all the leaders in Guyana to do one thing, that is to put the country first, and not the political ambition. I don't care who is the president or who is not the president, but put the country first. Do not make decisions that will benefit one race or your supporters. Do not make decisions that will alienate one group over the other. Marginalization cannot work in Guyana. It was tried many times before and it failed. You have to make decisions to benefit everyone in the country. We cannot and we must not continue to be divided, because we have seen what the division has placed us over the years. We have to put our house in order, because as Homo sapiens, we are just renting space on the face of this earth. Presently, we are in a Titanic. The country is taking in water at a rapid pace, and it will sink swiftly if actions are not taken to restore it, to bring calmness to the nation, to make sure that all the people, especially the youths, understand the direction we're going, the future direction that the country must take. We must unite because the world is watching us. Our youths depend on us. We cannot and we must not let them down. Guyana's future is in their hands. And for the good of the country, we must preserve the integrity of our Constitution and of the nation. We cannot do anything else. Anything else will lead us down the wrong path. Our leaders, I know, have had shortcomings. Not in this election, but in previous times. And when I say our leaders, I'm talking of from both the major political parties and all those who have formed government before. And we understand they've had shortcomings, but the shortcomings must not be used to the detrimental of the country. We must not let it happen. They have got to work in the best interest of the people, and they've got to work in the best interest of the country. That's the only way we'll be divided. Thank you. The only way we'll be developed. Sorry, thank you.
Yes, I was wondering why. So thank you so much, and gentlemen, it's been a pleasure. Before we go, let me just make a couple closing points. It's been a pleasure to have all you here. Say this again, my apologies for last night, but it's been good to have you here tonight. To our viewers out there, please let us be calm. I want to call on everyone in this country. In my closing remarks, I want to call on all of you. Instead of protesting violently, join me tomorrow, and we're going to make a call for non-violence in the country. If you can make a protest in a non-violent way, please join me. If anybody else is hurt by violence, if anybody else is hurt by political violence, I will personally come out and I will stand up by that seawall and I will preach for non-violence to everybody. Let us stand up for non-violence. There has to be a way we can settle our differences and still learn how to live together, not attack each other. I thank God that those children are okay and they have been discharged from hospital. At least they're not, mentally scarred for life, but at least health-wise they're okay. I'm so sorry that that person has lost his life in the West Berbice. I'm so sorry people are shot. I'm so sorry for the nurse who was shot and the police, the nurse whose car was damaged, the police officer and the female police officer who were all tremendously hurt in today's tussles. Please, folks, I beg you, violence is not the answer. Join me tomorrow. If there is another bout of violence in this country, let us go on a hunger strike if we have to bring peace to this country. The politicians, their roles are well set, power. That our role is set so that we live. I beg you, wherever you live across this country, let us get together, let us live together. And I thank Nohar Singh, I thank David Bisoon and our technical team for hosting this platform and making it possible. But please, brothers and sisters, let us please not attack each other. Let us please have decency. And please, all of you, offer a prayer for this motherland of ours, this dear land of Guyana. Namaste, assalamu alaikum, good night. May God bless all of you. Please, no violence, no hate. Thank you all. Have a good night, everyone.
Thank you.